Thank you. For those that might have joined a couple of minutes into the call, I just want to mention again that my name is Sylvia Bowling and I'm a business analyst in the Office of Securities Operations at Ginnie Mae. And the team, again, would like to welcome you to this training webinar on the RFS Pool Accounting Exception Feedback Download process. Bailey is going to be assisting us today on the technical side of Zoom. So if you have any such questions, please direct message her. And we also encourage you to log any questions you have in the Q&A box as we walk through the training. Questions will probably be taken at the end, but we ask that you know, feel free to start entering your questions in the Q&A box as they come up. We do ask that you please do not post to chat, as the team cannot really monitor this during the presentation. And then once we close the call, we don't have access to those. So if we need to follow back up with anybody, we lose that information. Bailey will be posting a link to the presentation deck in chat, so the information will be available for you, and it's currently residing on ginniemay.gov as well. So there is a related QRC, and Bailey will provide a link to that as well, which might help you with some additional information. So at this point, we don't want to give up our opportunity for our SMEs to provide some information. So I'm going to hand over to Christy Christensen, who's the resident SME on this process, and she'll be walking us through the information for today. Thanks, Christy.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. So we will just go ahead and dive right in. For those of you that may not know who I am, my name is Christy Christensen. I have worked on this Ginnie Mae contract since 2019. Also, I worked in mortgage servicing for 18 years, primarily in the Atlanta area. Okay, so here we have our agenda for what we will be discussing today in the training. Okay, so we will just dive right into our pool accounting exception feedback downloads. So this webinar is intended to train Ginnie Mae issuers on the PAEF, which is the Pool Accounting Exception Feedback, downloads that are available in the Reporting and Feedback System known as RFS. The download exceptions, liquidations, summary, and 11710A may assist issuers in their monthly investor reporting. Let's get started. First is download exceptions. After logging in to MGM, select Tools, then the PAEF module. Select the gray Download tab and click the Download Exceptions in the dark blue bar. Once the Download Exception screen is displayed, select the radio button next to the data set type that you would like to download. Click the Download button at the top of the screen. Then follow the instructions to download the exceptions as a CSV file. If your organization is a subservicer, you may check the Download Subserviced Issuers box on the right side of the page to download all of the active exceptions for all of the issuers you subservice. Here is a sample of the download exceptions CSV file. Row 1 has the column headings. Give me a thumbs up if you have downloaded the RFS exceptions before. Wonderful. Seeing lots of thumbs. That is excellent. Here are a few download exceptions tips. Save the download exceptions daily. RFS runs a nightly bulk summarization if an issuer has reported at least 90% of pool and loan data. Exceptions may generate during this overnight process. Saving as an Excel file is recommended. This download is live, meaning once exceptions are cleared in RFS, they no longer appear on this download. If multiple RFS files are uploaded or your team members are manually reporting information, new exceptions may generate and appear on this download. The next three are related. Column D shows the severity. Column F has the exception field name, while column H shows the exception message. Appendix 619 defines all of the RFS fields. It also lists available exception messages per field. Appendix 619 states the deadlines for clearing the outstanding exceptions by severity. And if your organization is a subservicer, you may check the Download Subserviced Issuers box to download all of the active exceptions for all of the issuers that you subservice. Next is download liquidations. After logging into MGM, select Tools, then the PAEF module. Select the gray Download tab and click the Download Liquidations in the dark blue bar. Once the Download Liquidation screen is displayed, select the radio button next to the data set type that you would like to download. The first option is for the current reporting period. The second option is for the date range of up to 24 months. After selecting the radio button, click the download button at the bottom of the screen. Then follow the instructions to download the liquidations as a CSV file. Here's a sample of the download liquidation CSV file. Row 1 has the column headings. The information displayed on this download is the loan level liquidations reported on the Liquidate Loan screen in RFS or from your monthly RFS file. Give me a thumbs up if you have downloaded the RFS liquidations before. Excellent. It's wonderful seeing lots of thumbs. A few download liquidation tips. The download liquidations data is live. If RFS liquidations are updated, removed, or added, either by a file or manually in RFS on the Liquidate Loan screen, the download liquidation data would need to be downloaded again to ensure the most current information is displayed. On the download liquidation screen, a single report period or up to a 24-month date range may be selected. Issuers have told us that the download liquidations has helped them reconcile their internal records to the liquidations reported in RFS. The liquidation principal, interest, and balance reported in RFS should match your liquidation schedule. RFS, the 11710E and 11708 should have the same liquidation removal reason. This is very important for audit purposes. In fact, one of the most common field review findings are loans found where liquidation code used was not correct on the HUD 11710E form. The liquidation download is a great way to ensure the removal reason codes are correct. This download um, is is a fantastic way to ensure that the removal reasons um, that you have reported are correct by filtering or sorting the removal reason column. A quick note, no liquidation information should be changed in RFS after the fourth business day, 7 p.m. Eastern Time deadline. A best practice would be to download the liquidations at the end of the fourth business day once all of your error and critical exceptions are cleared. Again, because this is very important, no liquidation information should be changed in RFS after the fourth business day, 7 p.m. Eastern Time deadline. And saving as an Excel file is recommended. Next is the download summary. After logging into MGM, select Tools, then the PAEF module. Select the gray Download tab and click the Download Summary in the dark blue bar. Once the Download Summary screen is displayed, click the Download button at the bottom of the screen. Then follow the instructions to download the summary as a CSV file. Here's a sample of the Download Summary CSV file. Row 1 has the issuer number and the reporting period. Rows 3 and 8 display the column headings. The information displayed on this download is the same as on the PAEF Summary tab. Give me a thumbs up if you have downloaded the RFS Summary in the past. Wonderful. Excellent. Lots of thumbs. So here's a sample of the Pool Accounting Exception Feedback Summary tab. The next two slides, we will compare the download summary of the PAEF Summary tab. The top half of this slide displays rows 3 through 6 of the download summary. The bottom half of the slide displays the top part of the PAEF summary screen. As you can see, all of the information in the red boxes match. So the top half of this slide displays the rows 8 through 11 of the download summary. The bottom half displays the bottom part of the PAEF summary screen. As you can see, all of the information in the green boxes match. So a few download summary tips. The download summary is live. The pool and loan data, or as pool and loan data is reported or updated, the download summary information changes. Saving the download summary monthly is recommended. The download summary may be useful in your reconciling process. And saving as an Excel file is recommended. And last but not least is the download 11710A. After logging into MGM, select Tools, then the PAEF module. Select the gray Download tab and click the Download 11710A in the dark blue bar. Once the Download 11710A screen is displayed, Click the Download button at the bottom of the screen. Then follow the instructions to download the summary as a CSV file. The download summary CSV file sample is 4 slides to show the 66 columns. The download 11710A is all active pulls reported in RFS for a single reporting period. This slide displays the first 20 columns, which are columns A through T. This slide displays the 21st to the 37th columns, which are columns U through AK. And this slide displays the 38th through 55th columns, which are columns AL through BC. And this slide displays the 56th to the 66th columns, which are columns BD through BN. Give me a thumbs up if you have downloaded the 11710A in the past. That's wonderful. I even saw a heart there. So, hoping maybe somebody likes it. Okay. So here's a sample of the pull accounting exception feedback. View 11710A link from the pull tab for a single pull. Each bubble contains the column letters for the download 11710A. This slide displays columns A through AK. And this displays the bubbles for columns AL through BN on the download 11710A. Can you give me a thumbs up if you have used the View 11710A link before in RFS? Wonderful. Lots of thumbs. Okay. The last two downloads that we have discussed today are the download summary and the download 11710A. The download 11710A is the pull level detail of the information displayed on the download summary. The screen displayed here is the download summary, which is the same information that is on the PAEF summary tab. Rows 7 and 13 display the column letters from the 11710A download. Cells B7 and C7 have a red letter F. For this training example, the sum of column F on the 11710A download is 80. This matches cell B6 for the reported loans and cell C6 for the expected loans. Cell D7 reflects the letter L, meaning the sum of letter L on the download 11710A equals the liquidated loans in cell D6. This same sum logic applies to row 7, with the exception of cells F7 and K7. Also, this same logic applies to row 13 with the exception of cells B13, C13, and E13. Now, let's discuss the information listed in the dark blue box. Cell F7 displays the delinquent loans percentage formula. This formula is the sum of column W divided by the sum of column F minus the sum of column L times 100. If you apply this formula on the download 11710A, you will notice that the total reflects the delinquent loans percentage in cell F6. Next, take a look at cell K7. This cell reflects the DQ2 plus formula. The second bullet point in the dark blue box. The total DQ2 plus formula is the sum of column Z plus the sum of column AA divided by the sum of column F minus the sum of column L times 100. Now for the third bullet point in the dark blue box. Please direct your eyes to row 13. The letter A is reflected in cells B13 and C13. These cells show the count of the reported pulls and expected pulls on the 11710A download. Again, this is a count, not a sum. And last but not least, the fourth bullet point details the other funds formula. Cell E13 is the sum of column BB and BD from the 11710A download. Okay, we went over a ton of information on this slide, so let's recap. Rows 7 and 13 cross-reference the 11710A download columns to the summary screen and the summary download. Remember, the cross-reference letters are either a sum, count, or formula from the download 11710A. This information should help you in your monthly investor reporting. A few download 11710A tips. The download 11710A is live. The download 11710A information changes as pull and loan data is reported or updated. There are 66 columns on the download 11710A, which is most of the information from the View 11710A link in RFS. To get the other funds total, sum the total of columns BB and BD. Other funds is also known as your principal and interest bank account balance. Also, there is a new quick reference card posted on this ginniemade.gov link. Then expand the RFS and IPMS section. Click on the QRC IS31 calculation of other funds amount on RFS summary screen link to view the QRC. The Download 11710A is the best place to review all of your ABA and bank account numbers reported in RFS to ensure they are correct. The ABA and bank account numbers are listed in columns BG through BN. The Download 11710A may be useful for a month-to-month pool comparison, and saving the download as an Excel file is highly recommended. I will now turn it over to the host.
Thanks, Christy. We really appreciate you providing such detailed insights into the downloads and also for demystifying some of the calculations behind the data. So thank you very much for that. And I'm sure the material will be very helpful to folks who want to come back and revisit some of the finer details. So before we get to answering any of your questions, we are inviting you to participate in a short survey. Bailey will post this under polls and quizzes. And we, as Jenny May, we use your feedback to improve our content and delivery. And you're welcome to leave any thoughts you may have for our consideration. Remember, if you minimize the survey for any reason, you can just navigate back to it via the polls and quizzes button on the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you can bring it back up and continue answering the questions. Again, it's a brief survey, shouldn't take you long, but we really do appreciate your input and your contributions to helping us improve training for our customers. Okay, while you guys are busy doing that, we'll advance to the next slide and we'll enter into a time of Q&A. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that there's a couple of ways that you can ask questions. If you've dialed in from your computer, you can just click raise your hand, and when you're called upon, the host will unmute you and you can just answer your question live. If you've dialed in from a phone, you can do the same by pressing *9, and again, the host will unmute you. Or you can type in your question and in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And again, please do not use chat. So at this point, we invite anybody with questions to take advantage of our SMEs on the call and get them to answer any lingering doubts you might have on this, these downloads or the data contained therein. Apparently, Christy, you did a really good job because there's no questions.
Really? Really? No questions? Oh, come on.
Just a quick update. We do have 2 hands raised.
Okay, cool.
Brenda Garrick, you have been placed off of mute and should be able to speak now. Brenda,
Are you
can you
there,
hear
Brenda?
us?
You may have to come off of mute on your side too.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hello.
Hey, Brenda.
Hey, just had a quick question.
Mhm.
So we're trying to table some of these reports in a sequel, and I was wondering, can do you know if any of these reports can be downloaded in a text? I know we get the CSV or we can get, PDF, or I think those are the two, but is text an option?
Not that I know of.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay. That was my
But
question.
I will take that as a takeaway. See what I can do.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Our next hand raise comes from Becky Smiley. Becky, you've been placed off of mute and should be able to ask your question. Becky, can you hear us? Okay, it looks like she lowered her hand, but we have no other hands raised at this time.
Okay, it's a bit of an enigma. Kelly, you did do a good job, Christy. All right, we'll look into Brenda's question. And again, we just want to remind you what normally happens to me when I'm on these training sessions is I always like, oh no questions. And as soon as I end it, I suddenly remember, oh, I had 3. So if you do happen to encounter that, like as soon as you hang up that you have a question, feel free to contact the help desk at askjennymay@hud.gov. And through that email, they'll be able to respond to you and get you to the correct SME to answer your questions. So just remember that that's an opportunity that you can use at any time beyond the, beyond the training. So again, we ask you if you would please submit your survey before you log off. So please feel free to give us your comments and then press submit. And then just a final reminder, there are the links. Bailey has just posted the links for anybody that maybe joined a minute or so after we started. So those should be available right now for you if you want to reference them on Ginny May. Oh, the links don't seem to work. Working for me. So I'm not quite sure. Ashley, if you we can send you those directly in email if for whatever reason that didn't work for you. We'll take that as a takeaway. And then just a reminder that besides these 2 artifacts, it does take a little while to process the video, but when that video is available, we'll also be posting that to jennymay.gov. And then we strongly encourage you to subscribe to training announcements in case you haven't already, and that way you will be notified of any upcoming or forthcoming training events. So we suggest that you would do that today so you can make sure you're apprised of any training that's coming up. So one last check, Bailey, if there's any questions.
Hey, Sylvia. Good afternoon. This is
Yes.
Gail Smith. To answer Brenda's question, yes, she may download that file and save it as a .text or
Awesome.
Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, wonderful. And
Okay.
Brenda, would you be able to go on mute? I think, yeah, because we're hearing background noise. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. It's always instant gratification is my favorite to get things done.
And
So
then Sylvia, I did have one other, thing to ask since we still have
go for
quite a
it.
few of the participants. So if we don't have any other questions, if you would like me to review slide 32 again with the cross-reference for the 11710A and the summary download, give me a thumbs up and I will be happy to go back to that slide. Because I know that was a ton of information. Okay. Seeing at least one thumb. So, yep, there's another thumb. So I will go right back over here to this slide. Because I know this is a ton of information to digest. So maybe this might help a little. So here, if you see the letters that are listed all in row 7 and row 13, this is just simply a cross-reference to the columns from the 11710A download. Okay, so these 4 that we specifically say, 3 of them were formulas, and then these 2 here are a count. All of the other ones that have single letters are the sum of those columns. Okay, and then the 3 that are formulas, this would be the formula that you would input after you sum like column W, F, and L. Okay, so in the Excel file, you could actually type this formula with the appropriate parentheses, and then that will give you the number that is here. Okay, so then it's the same thing over here for the DQ2 plus. So you have to put both open parentheses for order of operations, if you remember back from, high school or college, right? So then you would sum Z, add it to AA, and then once those are added together, divide it by the sum of F minus L times 100 to give you the percent for what is right above it. Okay, and then the other funds, which is the one that we have a QRC for, you would sum column BB and BD to come up with this total. Okay, so do we have any other questions about that?
Or to Christy's point, if you want to go back to a particular slide, Christy would be able to do that as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I do want to be respectful of your time. So again, we thank you for your participation today, and we hope that you found it informative and it will help going forward. So if there's no more questions, remember you can still contact Ginny May through askginnymay@hud.gov. And if not, we will close the call. And again, thank you for participation, and don't forget to hit submit on your surveys. So thanks again, everybody, and appreciate, Christy, all the good information that you shared. Thank you for that. And Ashley, we'll also send you, we'll email you the 2 links. All righty. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.